These right here are my favorite sneaker pickup from my Taiwan trip. I know it's been a minute since I've talked about the Taiwan trip, but this is it. Like, these are awesome. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Chris. Welcome back to the official WearTesters.com YouTube channel. Today, we are taking a detailed look at a shoe that released way back in 2023 and as an overseas exclusive too. I never even had the opportunity to buy these unless it was online, and obviously I never got them until right now. So this, my friends, is the Air Jordan 23.
These came out in 2023?
Why did I say something different?
I was just verifying because it doesn't feel very far from right now.
It's not, but when it's an overseas release, then I mean, I didn't even have the chance. Now, just in case you were wondering, this is the box, very plain box. I was actually surprised because this is not what the original Jordan 23s came in. Those were awesome. I do have a couple of pairs of the originals. They are back there buried though, so I can't get them. They're underneath another pile of sneakers, so that's a bummer. But I have the original Stealth colorway, which is kind of like a black and reddish vibe, even though not really, because the actual black and reds ended up becoming a limited release, which sucked. The best colorways of the 23s were all mad limited. The black and reds and the titaniums, man, those are dope. And then I also have the white and reds as well. That's actually one of my favorite ones. That's what these kind of remind me of, but just slightly different. The shoe itself originally released way back in 2008, and this was a shoe that was like a cause for celebration, if you will, like when we're talking about like brand achievements or just signature sneaker achievements. Like this is one of those ones where it's like, yo, it's the jersey number time. You know what I mean? Like it's like really cool. What do you call those things? A golden birthday? It's kind of like that, but like with sneakers. It was dope. And to celebrate how dope it actually was, Jordan Brand did something that was spectacular, and they released a countdown pack as a countdown to the lead up to the 23, where they re-released every single Air Jordan 1 through 22, and they were packaged with each other in a way that each shoe added up together equaled 23. It was fucking awesome. Like, what a time to be a sneakerhead was like that time frame. You know what I mean? That 2008-ish time frame was just so much fun, and we're getting back to that minus the product itself. Like, we don't have all of these like weird resellers trying to like scoop up and what would you call like monetize like footwear in ways that brands already do, but like in a sleazy way. I'm not saying that brands aren't sleazy. I'm just saying that that's their job. Like they're the brand. We don't need like three middlemen. You know what I mean? Like that's what Foot Locker and Shoe Palace and all those places are for. We don't need a bunch of people going to those stores and saying, yeah, you can have them for a price. So I'm glad that's done. Now the Air Jordan 23 was again a celebratory sneaker. There were different variations in terms of the overall side panels embroidered look. The initial ones were kind of like DNA strands, and then there were additional ones that were like an argyle look, like a very fancy look, but it was actually like hidden M and J's in there. And then there was another one where it was actually MJ's MJ signature, like his initial signature. Again, just a really fun time to like be into footwear and stuff where like things were awesome outside of the exclusive side of the black and red and titaniums, but I mean, not every colorway was like that, so I suppose it was fine. Now again, I did get these over at Across Sports while in Taiwan. They only had a couple of pairs of these left. I was super surprised because again, they released in 2023. And not only did I find the one pair in my size, but I got them for such a great price. It was awesome. I think they were like 80 bucks. Somebody was asking, by the way, like, is there a price difference between the products over in Taiwan versus the US? Because the dollar values are a little bit different. And the answer is yes and no. It's just not like drastic. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the prices are slightly different, so you can get them for slightly less, but I'm talking like slightly. Unless something's on discount, then obviously better. Now, as for the shoe itself, the traction right here is one of the coolest but functional looks of an outsole that I've ever seen. This was an option for me on, what video was it? The Air Jordan 8 Bugs Bunny? You might have cut it out. Somebody was saying, like, I was like reading through the comments, like checking everything, and he's like, oh, I think that he like started to zone out. And I was like, no, I went all the way through. You just didn't see everything.
You went all the way up until like you went to say 24, but it's not called the 24.
2009. I went up to through the numbers.
Yeah, and then you got sidetracked, and so I was just like,
which happens.
We gotta like clean this up, make it look pretty.
But so yeah, so this right here was an option for me as one of the best looking visually outsoles, but I didn't choose it because it's, to me, not as iconic as the other ones. Like, I think that it's great, but not a lot of people know about it. You know what I mean? What?
Did the Kobe footprint come out before or after this?
You're talking about the 9s? That was after. Because
I think they did it better.
Well, that was a different thing.
I know, but this looks almost like a cartoon versus versus...
Well, so this was storytelling in its infancy, you know what I mean? So like with the Jordan 20, they started telling stories. Like they started doing the laser prints and stuff like that and going back to the brand's heritage and telling those old stories while keeping it really in line with history. This was much of the same. It wasn't like, oh yeah, this is when he opened a bank account and needed his thumbprint. It wasn't like that. It's just that this was his print on the game, on footwear, on stuff like that. And so this is his fingerprint, not his footprint. And that's where Kobe 9, that's a foot map. That's him stepping on a pressure plate and them being like, oh, this is where everything is, where like his strike zones. And so let's add traction tight here. Let's loosen it up there. So a little bit different. I will say that this outsole is super durable despite it being decoupled and fairly thin in terms of overall rubber. Like all of these grooves are really thick and firm. This also features, I think it was 23. Yeah, it was. This was the last rendition of Jordan Brand's IPS system. So IPS stood for Independent Podular System or Suspension, one of the two, I can't actually remember. And it was featured starting with the Air Jordan 20 and then made its way all the way through the Air Jordan 23. And basically it was a Phylon midsole, and then they had certain sections cored out, kind of like done up like pistons or whatever, you know what I mean? So that's what these little like dots are for. And so I see what you're saying where it's the foot, but it wasn't. It's just that those were the toes, but not exactly.
It kind of reminds me of that Clippy dude from the Adidas shoes.
The feature wear guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Which I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this was not that. Like this was before the science aspect.
Got it.
But yeah, basically there is hollowed out sections in all of these little pods or circles that you see everywhere that look like toes or strike zones. And that way, when you press on that, it's going to compress the material, the Phylon or the foam, whatever it is that they're using. We did see stuff like this with Chris Paul's signature line, which was right in line of when he was wearing these, him and Carmelo, not the new Melo. And they were wearing these in like the All-Star games and stuff like that. So yeah, similar stuff, but slightly different from CP3's line. However, even though there were the IPS system in place, that didn't mean that there was not air involved. So in this particular shoe, there's full length zoom in it. So that coupled with the IPS system made these feel super springy, and it's like a really cool ride. However, I would argue that these are also one of the worst Jordans to play in, but that's like an aside. I'll explain in a second. I just wanted to say that the coolest IPS systems featuring air were actually in the interchangeable systems with the 21 and 22s. They had interchangeable heel pods where you can customize the ride, whether you wanted air or zoom air, and they came with pods of both. It was Now, what makes these one of the worst performing shoes of all time is a couple of things. Mostly though, it's the beautiful chassis that they're built on. This is one of the coolest looking things I've ever seen on shoes, but it plays horribly, dude. Like this is like wearing a pair of clogs on court. Like it's so clunky, it's ridiculous. It just never broke in for me. It was one of the most irritating but bouncy rides I've ever had. You know what I mean? Like you'd think that wearing a pair of foam posits would be worse. It's not. This is it. There's also this massive carbon plate right here, and that doesn't like help the overall fluidity of the shoe. In fact, this whole shoe is just rigid, dude. Like it's insane. But yeah, I just love the chassis despite it being an awful performance feature. It was just a really cool, pretty feature. They were able to apply so many cool colors and applications to it, a lot of which were like really mimicking like cars and things like that. It had that like kind of candy coated paint. It was so sick. However, like most people had this like little flex zone right here. These things would dig into your toes like crazy. And again, it goes all the way to the back. So the clunkiness of this, it was just, man, I don't know. It was good and bad all at the same time. But hot damn, they're pretty. Now the materials are just, they even emphasize that with the back fin right here on the heel, where it's a raw cut of leather, and then they do a fancy, like what they would do on dress shoes, and just add a little wing on the back. And so they decided to add that onto the Air Jordan 23. It was just a really cool thing. No performance intended on that. It's just awesome. Like it's a craftsmanship thing with cobblers. They're also hand stitched onto the shoe. So the upper right here, the main body is hand stitched onto the plastic chassis. This is why shoes like this don't get made often enough, because there's A, not enough demand for it, and B, it's super expensive compared to some of the others. The toe is one of the cooler features as well. It's got MJ's official signature right there wrapped around each shoe. It's cool. At least that's a Jordan fan. I thought it was dope. You've got a quilted liner with little like dog bone pillows or Achilles pillows in the back. A really weird tongue, fairly reminiscent of the Air Jordan 14 in terms of like shape and structure and stuff, but slightly different. They have these weird two little fixed lace loops, is that what you would call them? So they placed these in a way to where your shoes would not untie. Very weird, but very cool nonetheless, even though the tongue would still move around and everything, and it was a little annoying. The original shoe on the back of the tongue, they would feature the thumbprint, like MJ's thumbprint. It was altered, so it wasn't like you can go and use it, you know what I mean? Like steal his identity or anything. But on these ones, they have like a different graphic on there, one of which is the 23, and that's actually pointing towards the original version of the shoe where one tongue did have a Jumpman and the other one did have a 23, especially on specific colorways like the Motorsports. The aglets on these are really interesting. It's kind of got this like hippie vibe to it. The shoe itself is, man, what was it called? I just looked it up. It was so long ago. Mid-Autumn Festival. So I don't know what the original story on these were. I just know that they were super pretty and I wish that they released in the States. And the hippie vibe moves down to the insole where you've got a really cool patch right there at the heel. And then when you flip this thing over, this is actually a really awesome insole. This is something that we used to get on a lot of Jordans, like the flagship shoe, like the Air Jordan 14 and things like that, where it was a Durapontex performance insole with additional EVA pods right there. So you had additional comfort in the insole plus whatever was built into the shoe. Now, even though the 23s aren't in production, just in case you were curious, if you were interested in grabbing a pair, you can go true to size and most of you guys should be good to go. If you're a wide footer, good luck, because that thing's gonna f with your toes like nobody's business. If you thought the Air Jordan 4s were uncomfortable, you haven't seen shit. And with all of that being said, what is today's viewer submitted question of the day?
Okay, so you already mentioned when this shoe last released earlier in this video. The question is, in your opinion, why hasn't Nike/Jordan brand re-released the Air Jordan 21? What could be the different reasons or possibilities?
I did go over that in this, although I don't know if it stayed, because sometimes things get chopped for time.
I'm pretty good about keeping things in if they have been referenced in any shape or form.
So basically it's the same thing as this, like, what did you say, what, the 21s?
Yes.
Yeah, so the 21s is a double acid shoe, so that's kind of complicated. I know that we're getting foam posits and things like that, so it's not impossible. You got the shays and all that stuff where the front is double acid and the back isn't. So it's not an impossible thing, but it is a complication. The IPS system is also one of them. That shoe also had the interchangeable cushioning systems, so that's gonna be crazy expensive. We're talking about molds for all of this stuff. The molds are the most expensive part when creating footwear. And then you got that whole Bentley grill thing, which was fucking awesome looking, but it was on the side of the shoe. Those are additional molds as well. So it's not like the Air Jordan 4 or 5 or something like that, where they've basically been in production nonstop since, 1999. And so they have all of the molds and things like that for this stuff. Like for the 21s, they'd have to recreate everything. And again, it would just be really expensive. And with the cost of everything it would take to manufacture this shoe, is there enough interest or demand on it? And that's what they really like base their stuff on. So like if we're going in here, because I was flipping through this right before we started recording, when I see this, bro, like I am immediately brought back to this time frame, and I was just like, man, I wish that some of these would retro. These were all just basic shoes. These were not signature shoes. These were team models, a lot of which came in team colorways. And the reason why we would never get stuff like that as a retro is simply because Nike does not think that there's enough demand for it. Nike, that's your job, dude. Your job is to make us want your shit. It is simply your job. Like, nobody makes product because everybody wants it. Like, people make product that they want, hoping that other people are like them, that they will want it too. That's why we make videos. You know what I mean? Like, I don't make videos thinking like people want this video. That is true for some of the stuff. Like whatever the upcoming shit is, like, yeah, people might want videos on that specific shoe, but you gotta mix that in with the stuff that you're actually passionate about. And maybe that's the problem. Where's the passion at? Where did it go? You got rid of it all. You fired everybody that had like minds that went outside the box. Bring some of those dudes back, because you haven't found new ones that can replace them. You've got one guy that's overworked designing every model that you have right now, and it's obvious because they all look the same. The only thing carrying that brand at this point is the swoosh. That is it. And I'm telling you, these Chinese brands are approaching them fast. But yeah, that's the main reason. Overall cost, lack of demand, or their perceived lack of demand, and their inability essentially to market their stuff nowadays to make you want it again. But sound off below and let me know your thoughts on the subject. Maybe you have a a different take. And on top of that, hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at my favorite pickup essentially from Taiwan. I think that these are fantastic. It's such a pretty shoe, but such an awful shoe on court. It's one of those ones where you love them and hate them all at the same time. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. And until next time, guys, have a good one.